Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Thanks. I was 18 when my parents left me home alone for the first time in my life. They were celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary and had been planning a week-long trip to Maine for months. My older sister Hannah had already moved out and was living with her fiancé 2 hours away. So for that week, it was just me, alone in our old farmhouse on the edge of town. My name is Lena Crowell, and the house I grew up in sits about 3 miles outside of Braywood, a small rural town in western Massachusetts. Braywood isn't the kind of place you move to. It's the kind of place you end up stuck in. About 5,000 people, 1 high school, 1 grocery store, and a handful of churches. If you drive 10 minutes outside the center, you're swallowed up by woods and farmland. Our property stretched about 4 acres, with thick oak and pine crowding the backyard. The front opened to a dirt driveway that wound down to Hollow Bend Road, a cracked 2-lane strip of asphalt that stayed empty most nights. The nearest neighbor, the Schultzes, were a 1/4 mile up the road. I'd always thought of our house as comforting. It was 2 stories tall, with a wraparound porch my dad rebuilt when I was 10, and a kitchen that always smelled faintly like coffee and pine cleaner. But that comfort was always tied to the sound of my parents moving around inside, or Hannah laughing from her room. Without them, the place felt different, bigger, hollow. On my second day alone, I drove into town to fill up the car. Braywood had 1 gas station, Carter's Fuel and Mart, a squat brick building with 2 pumps out front and a convenience store attached. Everyone in town went there, and the Carters had run it for decades. As I stood at the pump, a black Jeep Cherokee pulled in on the opposite side. The man who got out didn't look familiar, which already set me on edge because in Braywood you recognize every face. He looked mid-30s, maybe older, with dark hair tucked under a baseball cap and a trimmed goatee. He glanced at me and gave a friendly nod. "Hey there," he said, locking the pump handle. "Hi," I replied, polite but clipped. He waited a few moments, then circled around the pump to my side. "Sorry to bug you. You know how to get to the interstate from here?" I shifted, holding my phone in one hand. "Yeah, you stay on Hollow Bend, then cut west on County 11. Signs will point you toward I-91, 20 minutes tops." Instead of pulling out a phone like any normal person, he pulled a small notepad and pen from his jacket and started writing as I spoke. I frowned. "You don't have GPS?" he chuckled. "Never trust it. Out here, phones lose signal anyway. Paper doesn't." "Guess that makes sense," I said, though I didn't believe it. When he finished scribbling, he looked me up and down in a way that made my stomach tighten. "You from around here?" "Yeah." "What's your name?" I hesitated. A warning bell rang in my head, but I didn't want to be rude. "Lena." "Lena," he repeated, almost like he was testing how it felt in his mouth. "Pretty name." "Nice meeting you, Lena." He went back to his side, hung up the pump, and climbed into the Jeep. I finished filling my car, got in, and drove off. The 10-minute drive home was uneventful until I slowed to turn into our driveway. My headlights caught the gravel curve leading into the trees, and in my rearview mirror I saw headlights behind me, the Jeep. My chest clenched, but when I turned, the Jeep kept going straight down Hollow Bend without even slowing. "Coincidence," I muttered. Still, my hands shook on the steering wheel as I pulled up to the house. That night, I had plans to meet friends at the diner. Around 8, I stepped outside, locking the door behind me. The air was thick with crickets. I walked toward my car, then froze. From the tree line came the crunch of leaves, slow, heavy. I called out, "Hello?" Silence. I hurried to the car, got in, and drove away. Hours later, just past midnight, I returned. As I crossed the driveway to the porch, fumbling with my keys, a voice cut through the still night. "Lena." I froze, heart thundering in my chest. The voice was male, calm, somewhere in the woods. I spun, eyes straining against the black. "Who's there?" I shouted, trying to sound brave. No answer, just silence. I bolted inside, slammed the door, and pressed my back against it, shaking so hard my keys slipped from my hand. I called my mom. "Someone just called my name from the woods." "Sweetheart, it's probably one of the neighbors," she said gently. "Maybe they saw you come home." "At midnight? In the woods?" She sighed. "Do you want us to come home?" I lied and said no. I didn't want to ruin their trip. The next night it happened again. I was about to get in my car when, clear as day, the voice came from the trees. "Lena." I ran back inside, slamming the door, and called 911 with trembling hands. 911, what's your emergency?" "There's someone outside my house. They're calling my name. Please, you need to send someone." 2 deputies arrived 20 minutes later. Deputy Harris and Deputy Cole. They swept the property with flashlights, circling the house, checking the shed and tree line. When they came back, Harris said, "We didn't see anyone. No footprints, no sign of trespassing. Could have been an animal." "Maybe your imagination." "He said my name," I snapped. "That's not my imagination." Cole's voice softened. "If it happens again, call us right away. We'll increase patrols." Not much comfort. I didn't sleep that night, lying in bed with the baseball bat my dad kept in the corner. 2 nights later, after a late shift at the restaurant, I pulled into the driveway past midnight. I grabbed my bag and climbed the porch steps. The woods were dead quiet. Then came footsteps, deliberate, crunching leaves. And then, "Don't call the cops on me again, Lena." My blood turned cold. I screamed into the dark, "You're sick. Leave me alone." No answer, just silence. I scrambled inside, locked every door and window, and called the police again, my voice breaking. They came, searched, and found nothing. Again. That night, my parents insisted over the phone that I stay with a friend until they came home. My best friend, Rachel, said I could crash at her place. It was just past 11 when I packed a bag and stepped outside. The air was heavy, the woods unusually still. I locked the door quickly and hurried toward my car. Sliding into the driver's seat, I shoved the key into the ignition. That's when movement caught my eye. A man in a dark hoodie and mask lunged at my door, yanking the handle. I screamed. He slammed his elbow against the glass, shouting, "Open the door, Lena!" Panic surged, white hot. I twisted the key, the engine roaring. I threw the car into drive and floored it, gravel spitting. He pounded the window again before I shot down the driveway, headlights bouncing. In the rearview mirror, I saw him standing at the edge of the trees, watching. I didn't stop until I reached Rachel's. Her dad met me at the door holding a shotgun. I collapsed into tears as he called the police. This time, they sent 3 patrols. They combed every inch of our property, searched the shed, the woods, even the fields beyond. They found nothing. No broken glass, no footprints, no vehicle, nothing. My parents came home the next day, their trip cut short. I cried into my mom's arms, shaking like a child. For weeks, I couldn't sleep without every light on. Every creak of the house made me jump. I never saw the Jeep Cherokee again, but I knew in my gut it was the man from Carter's. He followed me home. He learned my name. He waited. If I hadn't started the car fast enough that night, I don't know what would have happened. That fall, I moved into an apartment in Springfield with 2 roommates. I haven't spent a night alone in that farmhouse since. Some things never leave you. The sound of footsteps in the woods, the calm voice saying your name, the feeling of being watched, and the knowledge that once, just once, you answered a stranger's question at a gas station and gave him your real name. I was 15 when the first real scare of my life happened. Not the kind of scare you get from a haunted house at a carnival or from a jump scare in a horror movie. I'm talking about the kind that sticks with you for years, the kind that makes you rethink how safe you are in your own house. To give some context, I grew up in a small town in northern Ohio, the kind of town where neighbors waved at each other even if they didn't really know one another, where Friday night football games shut down the main street, and where nothing ever really happened. My parents had lived in the same house for nearly 20 years by the time this happened. It was a single-story ranch house sitting on about 2 acres of property, with a long gravel driveway leading to the road. By this point in my life, I had an older brother named Tyler who had already left for college, and a younger sister named Maddie who spent most of her time at sleepovers with her friends. I was the middle kid, the quiet one. I liked video games, late nights, and being left alone, so when my parents told me they were going to visit my aunt in Cincinnati for the weekend, I didn't complain. It was winter right before the whole COVID lockdown thing started, and I remember being kind of excited to have the house to myself. My dad left me a 20 on the counter for pizza. My mom hugged me with that "don't burn the house down" expression, and then they were gone. I had the whole weekend ahead of me. Me, my computer, and silence. The first night was normal. I stayed up until almost 2 in the morning playing StarCraft 2, chugging Dr. Pepper and half-eating a bag of Doritos until my eyes burned. I slept in the next day, lazed around, and repeated the cycle. But that second night, that's when everything happened. It was around 11:30 p.m. and I was in my room with the lights dimmed, headphones on, fully zoned into my game. My room was at the front of the house with one large window facing the driveway. The blinds were down, but a faint glow from the porch light seeped through the thin slats. That's when the doorbell rang. Not just once, but twice. Ding dong, ding dong. I flinched so hard I nearly spilled soda on my keyboard. Nobody ever came to our house this late. I paused my game, slid the headset off, and just sat there for a second. My first thought was maybe Maddie got dropped off early, or maybe my parents had come back. But when I checked my phone, there were no missed calls or texts. The doorbell rang again. "Okay," I muttered under my breath, standing up. I wasn't stupid. My parents had drilled into me since I was little. Never open the door if you're home alone. At least not without knowing who it was. I walked to the front door and called out, "Who is it?" There was a pause. Then through the door, a soft, fragile voice answered, "Hi, dear. I just need some help." It was a woman. She sounded old, maybe late 60s, early 70s. Something in me wanted to feel relieved. It wasn't like some angry man pounding at the door, but my gut didn't feel right. I peeked through the small side-light window by the door. Standing there was an older woman in a long coat, her silver hair pulled back, smiling at the door. She looked normal enough, but something about her smile made my stomach tighten. It wasn't warm, it was fixed. I cracked the storm door, keeping the main door shut. "Can I help you?" She tilted her head. "I need to use a phone. May I come inside?" Every alarm bell in my head went off. "I'm sorry, I can't let strangers in," I said quickly. "But the gas station down the road should still be open. They'll have a phone." Her smile didn't move, but her tone changed. "That's very rude of you, young man. An old woman asking for help, and you won't even open your door?" "I'm sorry," I repeated. "It's just house rules." My hand was already pushing the door shut. She didn't move. She didn't even blink. That fixed smile stayed, and for the first time that night, my heart started racing. When the door finally clicked shut, I exhaled hard, trying to shake it off. Probably some confused old lady who wandered off from somewhere, that's all. I went back to my room, tried to get back into my game, and then came the tapping. At first, I thought it was a tree branch, but we didn't have any trees close enough to my window to scrape against it. Clink, 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 metal against glass. I froze in my chair, staring at the drawn blinds. My room was the only one with a light on in the house, which made me feel exposed. Whoever was out there could see me, but I couldn't see them. "Nope," I whispered, standing up so fast my chair nearly tipped. I turned off my monitor, grabbed my phone, and slipped out into the hallway. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. I sat in the dark living room for a while, every creak of the house making me jump. Then the doorbell rang again, this time 5 or 6 times in a row. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. Jesus Christ, I muttered, clutching a throw pillow like it would do anything. The ringing stopped, I almost convinced myself to just ride it out when I heard another sound, the faint crunch of gravel in the driveway. Someone walking away. I forced myself to peek out the side window. There was a man standing on the porch. He looked maybe mid-30s, worn jeans, dark jacket, baseball cap pulled low. He raised his hands when he saw me peek out. "Hey, sorry to bother you," he said through the glass. "Have you seen my mom? She's older, gray hair, kind of short. She has dementia. She wandered off and someone said they saw her come this way." My heart sank. The old woman. She came here earlier," I said, keeping the storm door shut tight. His shoulders relaxed and he smiled. "Oh, thank God." "Did she come inside?" "No," I answered quickly. He frowned slightly. "Do you mind if I come in and look around?" She might have gone to the back. Something about the way he asked, too casual, like he expected me to just open up, put my nerves back on edge. "I can't let anyone in." "House rules," I repeated, my voice shaking now. "But I think she went around back." "You can check there." His smile returned. "Thanks, kid." "I appreciate it." He turned and walked down the steps. I waited until he disappeared into the darkness. Then I hurried to the back window to see if he'd come around, but he wasn't there. Neither was the woman. The yard was empty. I don't remember when I finally went to bed that night, only that I left the TV on and buried myself under the covers like I was 5 years old again. Sleep came in patches, restless and thin, until I woke up to that same clinking sound. Clink, clink, clink. I sat up, my throat dry, and turned toward the window. Slowly I reached over and lifted the blind just enough to peek out. My blood turned to ice. The old woman was standing there, inches from the glass, that same fixed smile on her face. In her hand, she was tapping the point of a kitchen knife against the window. Clink, clink, clink. I dropped the blind and stumbled back, my whole body trembling. The doorbell rang again, over and over. Someone pounding now. I didn't answer. I didn't move. I curled up on the bed and waited. And eventually it all stopped. When the sun finally came up, I felt like I'd run a marathon in my sleep. I called my dad first thing and told him everything. "You were smart not to open that door," he said firmly. "Sounds like they were trying to get inside." Do you think they were really related?" I asked. Dad was quiet for a moment. "Does it matter? They wanted in. That's all you need to know." I hung up feeling both relieved and sick, because deep down I knew he was right. Whether she had dementia or not, whether that guy was her son or not, it had all been too coordinated, too deliberate, and the knife. I'll never forget the sound of it, that metal tapping against glass, clink, clink, clink. It's been years since that night, but the paranoia never fully left. I still check locks 3 times before bed. I still jump when the doorbell rings after dark. And last week, it almost happened again. I was watching my friend Derek's dog, a little Pomsky named Milo. Around midnight, Milo went nuts at the back door, barking like crazy. I figured he wanted to go out, so I walked over, annoyed. But when I got close, I froze. The doorknob was rattling. Someone was trying to open it from the outside. Through the screen, I saw a man staring right at me. Mid-50s, filthy clothes, scraggly beard. "Hey," he said, grinning with yellowed teeth. "Is Melissa here?" Melissa is Derek's younger sister. She's 22. My stomach dropped. "Nobody by that name lives here. You need to leave." He tilted his head. "You sure?" I forced my voice steady. "Yeah. And this place has cameras everywhere. Leave now," that seemed to do it. He grumbled, stepped back, and disappeared into the dark. When Derek asked his sister later, she swore she'd never seen him before in her life. It made me realize something. People like that don't just go away. They look for open doors, for hesitation, for a second of trust, and all it takes is one mistake. I grew up in a small town in northern Wisconsin, in a place most people would call the middle of nowhere. Our house sat on about 4 acres, tucked between thick pine woods and open farmland. If you drove 15 minutes east, you'd hit a town called Renshaw. That was where the grocery store, the one movie theater, and a pizza place were. To us, that counted as civilization. Life out there wasn't bad, but it was lonely. My parents had bought the property before I was born, chasing the dream of quiet country living. I was 13 when the night I'm about to tell you about happened. At that age, I had responsibilities beyond most kids my age. Feeding our 2 dogs, locking up the shed, making sure the wood stove was loaded in the winter. My dad liked to say I was mature for my age. My mom said I was too serious sometimes. Both were kind of right. That night, my parents had plans. They'd driven to a wedding reception about an hour away, planning to stay late. I wasn't bitter about being left alone. I actually liked it most of the time. I had the house to myself, the TV, the PlayStation 2 hooked up in the living room, and enough leftover pizza from the night before to last me until they got back. I remember how normal the evening started. It was a Saturday in late fall, that weird season in Wisconsin when the air is cold enough to sting your nose, but there isn't snow yet. I'd spent the day riding the old 4-wheeler around the field trails, then came inside when it got dark. I had just started playing Vice City again. For some reason, that game never got old for me. The neon colors, the cars, the soundtrack, it felt like an escape from the silence of the woods outside. I was sprawled on the couch, controller in hand, half a can of Mountain Dew on the coffee table. That's when it happened. Bang! The sound was metallic, loud enough that it cut straight through the TV noise. My first thought was that something heavy had fallen in the yard. I froze for a second, eyes wide, and then I hit pause. What the hell was that? I whispered to myself. I got up and started moving from window to window. The house had big picture windows that looked over the yard, and from most of them you could see the outbuildings. At first, nothing looked out of place. The swing set, the trees, the old shed. Then I spotted it. The storage building, the one with the riding mower, tools, and random junk. Its door was standing wide open. I knew that door. It was heavy, steel with a warped frame, and it never just blew open. I remember muttering, "No way, that's the wind." My heart rate kicked up. I went straight to the hall closet and pulled out the .22 rifle. My dad always kept it loaded with a few rounds, just in case, as he liked to say. My hands were shaking, but at the same time I felt this stubborn sense of duty. It was my house, my family's property. I couldn't just ignore it. I slid open the back door, cold air rushing in, and shouted across the yard, "Hey! Who's out there?" Silence. I tightened my grip on the rifle and walked toward the storage building, gravel crunching under my sneakers. My breath came out white in the air. When I got close, I yelled again, "I'm armed! If someone's in there, you better come out now." Still nothing. I stopped at the doorway. The inside smelled like gasoline and grass clippings. The lawnmower, the quad, rakes, and bins all sitting in shadows. I couldn't see behind everything. Anyone could have been crouched there, hiding. That's when the fear finally pushed through. I wasn't ready to clear that place like some cop. I wasn't even old enough to drive yet. So I backed up slowly, keeping the rifle raised, then reached out and shoved the heavy door closed with my foot. The latch clanged shut. I turned and walked fast back to the house, locked the door behind me, and sat by the window that faced the storage building. My whole body felt electric, like any second the door was going to swing back open and someone would step out. Minutes ticked by. Nothing happened. I finally picked up the landline in the kitchen and called my dad's cell. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. "Dad, it's me. I think someone's messing around in the yard." The shed door was wide open. I closed it, but I don't know. "Call me back." I hung up, grabbed the phone, and went back to the couch by the window. I turned on Family Guy just for background noise. The laughter track made me feel a little less alone. I was just about to tell myself I'd overreacted when I heard it. Creak. It came from upstairs. I froze, remote in my hand, the phone pressed to my thigh. My mouth went dry instantly. Someone was inside. I knew the house well enough to place the sound. It came from the hallway upstairs near my parents' room. I whispered to myself, no, no way. But deep down I knew. When I went outside to check the storage building, I had left the back door unlocked. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the rifle, flicked off the TV, and started up the stairs. I didn't call out. If someone was up there, I didn't want to give myself away. At the top, I flipped on the hallway light. 5 doors lined the hall, 3 bedrooms, the bathroom, and the attic crawl space, all closed. I crept toward my parents' room, my knees weak. The creak I'd heard came from that side. I crouched down and looked under the gap at the bottom of the door. 2 bare feet, facing the far wall, motionless. I almost threw up right there. I stood up fast, turned, and bolted back downstairs. My hands were slippery on the rifle stock. I ran into the downstairs bathroom, locked the door, and dialed my dad again. Voicemail. Again. I called 3 more times, no answer. Finally, I punched in 911. The operator answered, 911, what's your emergency? I kept my voice low. There's someone in my house. I'm 13. I'm locked in the bathroom with a rifle. Please send someone, please. She spoke calm, steady words. Stay quiet. Stay where you are. Officers are on the way. Can you describe? Thump, thump, thump. Footsteps coming down the stairs. My chest clenched so tight it hurt. I whispered, he's coming. He's coming. The footsteps grew closer. Then they stopped right outside the bathroom door. I could see the shadow under the crack of the door. Then a voice, deep, calm, too calm. What's up, kid? I'll never forget that voice. Not if I live to be 100. My whole body shook, but I forced myself to shout, I called the cops. They're on their way right now, and I've got a gun. The operator, still on speaker, asked quickly, are you safe? Is he still there? The man rattled the door handle. When he found it locked, he paused. Then I heard him chuckle softly. After a long second, his footsteps moved away. I held my breath, listening. Then, slam. The sound of the back door. I sat there for what felt like an eternity until the red and blue lights finally lit up the windows. When the deputies came inside, I broke down crying, rifle still clutched to my chest. They cleared the house, checked the shed, the yard. Nothing. The man was gone. One of the deputies knelt down in front of me and said gently, you did good, son. You called. You stayed safe. That's what matters, but the truth. It didn't feel like I did good, because I knew exactly how he got in. I'd left the back door unlocked when I went outside. The image that still keeps me up sometimes isn't even his shadow at the bathroom door. It's those bare feet under my parents' bedroom door, standing, waiting, like he wanted me to know he was there. That night changed me. It's been years, but sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I still think I hear that voice again, low and casual, whispering through the dark. What's up, kid? I was 16 the first time I spent a full weekend alone in our house. To anyone else, that might sound like a teenager's dream. Freedom, snacks, late-night video games without anyone nagging you. For me, it was half excitement, half nerves. I wasn't used to the silence. My parents had taken my younger sister Chloe to her soccer tournament 3 hours away in Pennsylvania. I begged off going, partly because I had a math test coming up, partly because, truthfully, I wanted to prove I could handle being on my own. My dad raised his eyebrows but agreed. You're old enough, he said. Just don't burn the place down. We lived in a 2-story house on a quiet suburban street in a town called Fairhill, about 30 minutes outside of Baltimore. Ours wasn't the kind of neighborhood where people locked their doors during the day. Families knew each other. Kids rode bikes. But the truth is that sense of safety makes you complacent. I found that out the hard way. The first evening alone, I kept myself busy. I reheated leftover pizza, sprawled on the couch, and half-watched TV while scrolling my phone. Around 10, I FaceTimed Chloe to wish her luck for her morning game. She made faces at me and told me not to raid her snack drawer. After we hung up, I turned off the downstairs lights and headed to my room upstairs, feeling the kind of buzz you get from being in charge of an entire house. But around midnight, I couldn't sleep. The silence pressed in. I'd grown used to the sound of my sister's white noise machine through the wall, my parents talking downstairs, the dog's claws clicking on the hardwood. Now it was just still. I put my headphones on and listened to music until I dozed off. The first night was fine. The second wasn't. Saturday morning, I woke up late, ate cereal, played some Xbox, and texted my friend Evan to come hang out. His parents were strict, though, so he couldn't. By evening, I was restless. I FaceTimed Chloe again, and she held up her team's silver medal. I promised I'd clean the kitchen before Mom got home, even though I hadn't touched the dishes. At around 9 p.m., the wind started to pick up. The trees outside my window scratched against the siding. I shut my blinds. I told myself to relax, but something about being the only heartbeat in the house made me hyper-aware of every creak and hum. By 10:30, I was back on the couch with the TV volume low, scrolling TikTok. That's when I heard it. 3 dull thuds, like someone knocking softly, not on the front door, but somewhere in the back of the house. I froze. The sound didn't repeat. The fridge motor clicked on, humming loud. I told myself it was just the wind, maybe a branch. Still, I muted the TV and sat perfectly still, listening. A minute later, I heard it again. 3 faint knocks. This time, definitely from the sliding glass door in the kitchen. My heart started pounding. I grabbed my phone and crept to the kitchen, every step loud in my ears. From the hall, I could see the dark outline of the sliding door. The backyard beyond was black, the porch light I'd forgotten to turn on, leaving it an empty mirror. I forced myself closer. Nothing. No figure, no movement. I stood there holding my breath for 30 seconds, then unlocked my phone and called Evan. "Yo," he answered. "Dude," I whispered. "I think someone's outside my house." There was a pause. "Like, seriously?" I heard knocking at the back door. "Bro, it's probably the wind." "I'm telling you." Right then, a sharp rattle against the glass cut me off, like fingers drumming. I sucked in a breath. "Hello?" I blurted before I could stop myself. Silence. "Call your parents," Evan hissed through the phone. "They're 3 hours away," I said. My voice shook. "Should I call the cops?" Before he could answer, I noticed something. On the glass, about waist height, smears. Oily marks like someone had pressed their hand flat against it. My stomach dropped. I backed away, phone pressed to my ear. "Evan!" Then the porch light flicked on by itself. I jumped. The backyard lit up, pale and eerie. And in that instant, I saw, just for a second, the outline of a face pressed to the glass. Pale skin, wide eyes, staring straight at me. I screamed and stumbled backward, almost dropping my phone. By the time I looked again, the glass was empty. The next 10 minutes were chaos. Evan begged me to call 911. My hands shook so bad I could barely dial. When the dispatcher answered, I blurted out what happened. She told me to lock all the doors and stay on the line. I checked the front door, locked. Side door, locked. I ran upstairs to my room, slammed the door, locked it, and crouched in the corner with the phone. "Officers are on the way," the dispatcher said. Her voice was calm, steady. "Stay where you are." Don't try to confront anyone, but as I crouched there, I realized something. My bedroom overlooked the driveway. If someone was out there, I'd see the cops pull up. I crawled to the window and peeked through the blinds. The driveway was empty. Minutes dragged. 5, 10, 15. My heartbeat filled my ears. Then, footsteps. Not outside. Inside. The floor creaked below my room. I slapped a hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. The dispatcher kept talking, but I barely heard her. Whoever it was moved slow, like they were trying not to be heard. A board groaned, closer this time, on the stairs. "Please," I whispered into the phone, "please hurry." Then, knock, knock, knock. On my bedroom door. My whole body went cold. "Police," a voice called. "Open up." Relief crashed over me, but then my brain caught up. Why would cops knock on a locked bedroom door if they hadn't cleared the house? I stayed silent. "Kid, it's safe. Open the door." The voice was deeper now, impatient. I pressed the phone to my ear. "There's someone at my door saying they're the police." "Do not open it," the dispatcher said firmly. "Our officers aren't inside yet. They'll announce themselves when they arrive." My stomach dropped. Whoever was outside my door wasn't a cop. The knob jiggled, slowly at first, then harder. I stumbled back, clutching the phone. "Open the door," the voice said again, harsher. I screamed into the phone. "They're here. They're trying to get in." Downstairs, sirens wailed. Red and blue lights washed across my blinds. The pounding on my door stopped. I didn't move until I heard real voices outside. "Baltimore County Police," the dispatcher confirmed it was them. I unlocked my door, shaking so hard I could barely turn the knob. The officers swept the house. No one. No sign of forced entry. The backyard was muddy from the rain, but there were no footprints. Only those smeared handprints on the glass which they photographed. One officer knelt down to my level. "You did the right thing calling us. But there's no one here now." I tried to explain the footsteps, the voice, the face. They exchanged looks I couldn't read. One wrote notes. Another asked if I'd taken anything. Sleep meds, weed, alcohol. I swore I hadn't. They stayed until my aunt, who lived 20 minutes away, arrived to watch me for the night. By then it was nearly 3 a.m. I barely slept. The next morning my parents drove straight home. They tried to hide their worry, but I saw it. Dad checked the locks twice. Mom hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. For a while things went back to normal. School, chores, sibling arguments. I told myself maybe it was stress, maybe exhaustion, maybe my brain playing tricks. But sometimes when I'm alone in the house at night, I still hear it. That slow, deliberate knock, right on my bedroom door. And I know, I'll never forget the way that voice sounded. Not angry, not wild, just steady, patient. Like whoever it was knew I'd be alone again someday. Waiting. I never planned on making a career out of crime. That's the truth, even if it sounds like the kind of excuse someone makes when they're caught. If you'd asked me at 16 what I wanted out of life, I would have told you I wanted to work on cars, open a little garage of my own, and maybe, if things went well, live quiet somewhere that didn't smell like rust and cigarettes. But life has a way of pulling you sideways. By the time I turned 23, I was already 3 years into breaking into homes with my friend Robert. He was older, 28, with a rough laugh and a way of talking that made everything sound simple, even when it wasn't. I had known him since I was 15, back when he was just the older guy who used to hang around the gas station lot, fixing cars for cash and drinking cheap beer. Robert wasn't evil, not exactly. He was reckless, greedy, and sometimes mean. But he looked out for me in his own way. After my mom passed, after I stopped showing up at my part-time jobs and college classes, he was the only one who stuck around. And sticking around meant pulling me into the world he lived in. That's how I ended up crouching in the woods off Birchfield Road that cold October night, watching the headlights of a black Lexus back out of a long gravel driveway. "They're right on schedule," Robert whispered beside me. I didn't answer at first. My eyes stayed fixed on the car as it paused at the end of the driveway, blinkers flashing, then turned onto the winding road, heading toward town. The taillights vanished through the trees, swallowed up by the dark. I swallowed hard. "Yeah," I muttered finally. "Right on time." Our truck was parked a mile back at an old turnout that had never been finished. From there, we'd walked parallel to the road, moving slow through the underbrush until we reached the patch of woods across from the property. We'd done this routine 3 times before. Watch, time their departure, study their patterns. This wasn't our first job, but something about this house was different. The place was massive, more like a luxury cabin than anything else. 3 stories of wood and glass, a wide wraparound porch, and a roof that staggered down in clean modern steps. It didn't look like people lived there, it looked like something out of a magazine. But we knew they did. We'd watched them. Middle-aged couple, no kids, wealthy. They left almost every Friday night around 8 and didn't return until past midnight. And most importantly, they had never once set their alarm. Robert shifted beside me, brushing pine needles from his jacket. 10 more minutes, he said. Give 'em time to remember whatever rich people forget. Purses, wallets, spare phones. I nodded, trying to ignore the dull buzz of nerves in my chest. I hated the waiting. Waiting gave my mind too much room to imagine what could go wrong. Robert leaned back against a tree trunk, exhaling smoke from the cheap cigar he'd lit while we were crouched in the dark. Relax, Evan, he said, reading me like he always did. This one's clean. Easy in, easy out. Jewelry, maybe some cash, maybe a safe. We're due for an easy one. I forced a weak smile. Easy, huh? Like that place on Lakeview? He chuckled. That wasn't easy because you freaked out over a dog. This one? No dog. Just a payday. He flicked the cigar away, then tugged his gloves tighter. 10 minutes crawled by, the woods quiet except for the distant hum of crickets. Finally, Robert pushed up onto his feet. Let's move. We crossed the road quickly, crouched low. The gravel of the driveway crunched faintly under our boots as we approached the porch. Robert crouched at the front door, pulling out his lock-picking kit with practiced ease. I scanned the trees, the porch, the windows. The house loomed above us, its many windows dark, reflecting the moonlight like cold eyes. My gut tightened. You sure about this? I whispered. Robert smirked without looking back. You're asking me that now? I sighed, adjusting the strap of my backpack. Just, something feels off, that's all. Something always feels off to you. He slid the last pin into place with a quiet click. Doors open. We stepped inside. The air hit me first. Cold, still, with that faint chemical-clean smell like a hotel room that had been scrubbed too many times. The interior was immaculate, hardwood floors shining in the faint moonlight that spilled through the massive front windows. Robert glanced at the alarm keypad on the wall. Nothing blinking, nothing armed. See? I told you. Easy, I closed the door quietly behind us, but just as the latch clicked, I thought I heard another click. A sharper one, mechanical, faint but definite. I froze. Did you hear that? Robert looked up from tucking his kit away. Hear what? That sound. Like a dash, I stopped. The house was silent. My own heartbeat was too loud in my ears. Never mind, he shrugged. You're jumpy as hell, man. We split like we always did, Robert checking the lower floor while I took the stairs. I had barely set foot on the bottom step when Robert's voice cut sharp from behind me. Ah, damn it! I spun around, pulse leaping. He stood near a closed door, staring at his gloved hand. Blood dripped down his wrist, crimson against the black latex. What happened? I hissed, rushing over. He held his hand out, palm split open with a deep cut. I touched the damn doorknob. Just touched it, what? I bent down, inspecting the knob. Ornate carved metal, polished, but nothing sharp. You serious? Does it look like I'm kidding? His face was pale. You need stitches. No hospital, he snapped, digging in his backpack with his good hand. I'll wrap it. I handed him a spare shirt and he tore it into strips, binding the wound tightly. His jaw clenched as he tied the makeshift bandage. This place is... I started. Don't start, he cut me off. It's just bad luck. He grabbed the knob again with his other hand and swung the door open. I shook my head, uneasy. And then I turned back toward the stairs. I never saw it coming. The moment my foot hit the second step, a searing agony ripped through me. I screamed, stumbling backward. My shoe was sliced open, and with it, my two smallest toes gone in an instant. Blood poured across the polished wood. Jesus Christ! Robert shouted, rushing toward me. I was gasping, staring in horror at the bloody stumps. My toes, lying there on the stair like discarded dice. There was nothing there, I choked. A panel slid open on the stair's side. Out came a mechanical arm, knife glowing orange from a built-in torch. The knife hummed, hot and waiting. Robert's face went white. What the hell is this place? I grit my teeth, grabbing the knife. Help me, I growled, pressing the blade against the wounds. The smell of burning flesh filled my nose as I screamed, cauterizing the stumps. My vision swam. Robert staggered back, shaking his head. This isn't right. This isn't a house. His words barely registered before he leaned into the kitchen doorway. A metallic flash, a whirring sound, then his scream. A blade shot from the jamb, cleaving through his hand, severing fingers. He stumbled back, bleeding, eyes wide with shock. "Robert!" I shouted, dragging myself toward him. He tripped over me, landing hard on the stairs. The hum of another hidden mechanism rose, and then the wet sound of flesh tearing. His scream curdled my blood. Blood poured, his face twisted. He stumbled forward, then collapsed motionless. And I realized with crushing clarity that we'd walked into something built to kill us. Something designed for it. Not a home, a trap, a prison. And somewhere, unseen in the dark, someone was watching. I was 24 the year it happened, living alone for the first time in my life. After college, I'd bounced around in shared apartments and noisy dorm-like situations, but in the summer of 2019, I got the chance to rent a small one-bedroom house on Alder Lane. It wasn't much, an aging bungalow tucked between two larger homes, but it was mine. The place had a crooked little porch, peeling white paint, and a yard that always seemed to be a step behind the season. I liked it, though. My mom worried. "That street doesn't have enough foot traffic," she told me when I first signed the lease. "It's quiet. Too quiet. Not safe for a girl your age." I'd laughed her off. "Mom, I'm not 12. Besides, crime in this part of town is basically non-existent." And for the first couple months, she was right. I felt safe. Too safe, even. The silence of the neighborhood sometimes pressed on me at night, making me hyper-aware of the creaks in the floorboards or the scratch of branches outside. But I chalked it up to nerves. By November, I'd settled into a routine. Work during the day at the little insurance office downtown, a jog in the evening, Netflix at night. My boyfriend Daniel lived an hour away, so most nights it was just me, my cat Luna, and the hum of the fridge. But then small things started bothering me. One morning I opened the fridge and found the carton of orange juice sitting in the wrong spot. I knew I hadn't moved it. Another evening I came home from work to see a couch pillow lying on the floor. Luna wasn't the type to drag things around. At first I blamed my own forgetfulness, telling myself I'd moved things without remembering. But a part of me, some animal part buried deep, felt watched. I tried to ignore it, until the night everything changed. It was a Tuesday, cold with a wind that rattled the windows. I'd gotten home late from work after a pile of insurance claims kept me in the office. By the time I locked my front door behind me, it was almost 9. I heated up leftovers, watched half an episode of The Office, then climbed into bed with Luna curled at my feet. Somewhere around 1 in the morning, I woke up. My body was slick with sweat, even though the room was chilly. The air felt wrong, still heavy. Luna sat upright on the bed, ears perked, staring toward the hallway. I whispered, "What is it, girl?" She didn't move. That's when I heard it. A soft click, like the sound of a door latch being gently eased open. My stomach dropped. I lived alone. I grabbed my phone, fumbling for silence so the screen light wouldn't give me away, and eased out of bed barefoot. Every instinct screamed at me to call 911, but another voice in my head whispered, "What if it's nothing? What if you look like an idiot?" But then I heard footsteps, slow, careful, coming from the living room toward the hall. My heart hammered. I ducked back into my bedroom, shut the door quietly, and slid the small lock into place. I pressed myself against the door, straining to hear. The footsteps paused. Silence. Then a man's voice. Low, grating. "I know you're awake." I clapped a hand over my mouth to stifle the sound that almost escaped. My body shook violently. The voice came again, closer now. "Don't bother calling anyone." I cut the line. My phone was in my hand. Line? Did he mean the old landline jack by the couch? He didn't know I had a cell. My hands trembled as I dialed 911. It rang once, then cut off. No signal. The man laughed from the hallway as if he knew. I turned off the phone screen, slid it under the bed, and looked around for something to defend myself with. The best I could find was the heavy lamp from my nightstand. The footsteps approached, slow, intentional. He stopped right outside my door. I could see the faint shadow of his feet beneath the gap. He whispered almost playfully, "Are you alone in there?" I didn't answer. My heart felt like it was going to burst. The knob turned gently against the lock. He chuckled again. "Smart girl." Then, silence. I stood frozen, every muscle burning with tension. For almost 5 minutes, nothing. Then the sound of retreating footsteps, the creak of the living room floor, and the front door closing. I waited. 10 minutes. 15. I didn't dare move. Finally, I crept to the window by my bed and pulled back the curtain a sliver. My porch light glowed on empty steps, no one in sight. But the silence wasn't comforting anymore. It was suffocating. The next morning, I told Daniel everything. He was furious I hadn't called him. "You should have driven here last night," I said, pacing the kitchen. "You should have called the cops," he shot back. "I tried." No signal. He frowned. "That doesn't make sense. You always have service here," I didn't argue. I just wanted him to stay over, but he couldn't. Work wouldn't let him take off. So he promised to come Friday night instead. That Thursday evening, I got home from work and found something waiting for me. A note, folded in half and tucked under my front door. In jagged handwriting, it read, "You look pretty when you sleep." I dropped it like it burned. My vision blurred with panic. I wanted to run, but where? I called the police this time. 2 officers came, looked around and found nothing. They were sympathetic but unconcerned. "Probably some kids messing around," one said. But kids didn't whisper outside your bedroom door. That night, I barely slept. I sat on the floor with the lamp clutched in my hand, staring at the door until the first gray light of dawn seeped in. Friday came. Daniel arrived with an overnight bag and a baseball bat he joked about, but I knew he intended to use. Having him there calmed me. We cooked dinner, drank wine, tried to pretend it was a normal night. By midnight, we were in bed. I actually started to drift off. Then, click. Both of us shot upright. Daniel whispered, "You heard that too?" I nodded. The footsteps came again, careful, slow. Daniel grabbed the bat and motioned for me to stay behind him. He moved into the hallway, muscles tense. I clutched my phone with shaking hands, already dialing 911. This time, it went through. I whispered to the dispatcher what was happening. Daniel crept toward the living room. "Who's there?" he barked. Silence. Then a shadow moved across the far wall. A figure stood in the corner of the living room. Tall, thin, clothes hanging in tatters. His face was hidden under some kind of mask. Dirty nylon stretched over features that shifted oddly beneath. Daniel raised the bat. "Get the hell out before I—" The figure didn't move. Instead, the lights flickered, once, twice, then steadied. The dispatcher in my ear said, "Officers are on the way, stay on the line." The figure tilted its head at me as if it could see me standing in the hallway with the phone. Then it whispered, the same gravelly voice as before. "I told you." "Don't call anyone." Daniel swung the bat, but the figure stepped back, into the shadows, and was simply gone. The cops arrived minutes later. They searched the whole house, the yard, even the crawl space. Nothing, no forced entry, no footprints. "Could be a squatter," one officer suggested. "Sometimes they slip in and out without leaving much trace." But that didn't explain how he vanished in front of our eyes. Daniel refused to leave me alone after that. For weeks, he stayed at my place. We changed the locks, installed cameras, even nailed the windows shut. Life almost went back to normal. Almost. But then one night, I woke to Luna hissing at the corner of the room. I turned my head and saw the figure crouched in the corner, mask bulging where a nose should be, eyes glowing faintly through the nylon. I screamed. Daniel bolted upright, grabbing the bat, but when he turned on the light, the corner was empty. The cameras caught nothing. We lasted 2 more weeks before I broke the lease. I couldn't stay there. I moved back in with my mom until I could find somewhere else. Sometimes I dream about Alder Lane. In the dreams, I'm back in that bedroom, sweating, frozen, listening to the footsteps. And I always wake just before the door opens. But the worst part, the part I never tell anyone, is that when I unpacked at my mom's house, I found another note folded in my jacket pocket. Same jagged handwriting. "You look pretty when you sleep. I'll find you again." I had just settled into the couch with a mug of coffee when my phone buzzed on the side table. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind where the silence of Ashwood Heights felt almost too heavy. My name's Daniel Harris, and I've lived alone in this house for about 2 years now. Ashwood Heights isn't exactly a bustling neighborhood. It's tucked back against a stretch of woods on the edge of town. The kind of place realtors describe as peaceful, but locals know as isolated. I bought the place after my divorce. Needed space, needed quiet, needed something that felt like mine again. My ex, Julia, had always hated silence. She liked the hum of city traffic, the chatter of neighbors through thin apartment walls, the comfort of knowing life was always going on just outside the door. I told myself I was different. I told myself the quiet here would heal me. Some nights, though, the silence pressed so close it felt like it was listening. That night was one of those nights. I'd just finished reheating some leftover lasagna. The TV was playing a rerun of some crime drama. Background noise, really. Outside, the sun had already dropped, and with no streetlights anywhere near the cul-de-sac, my backyard dissolved into a black sheet of nothing. The woods beyond swallowed what little light remained. Around 8 p.m. it happened. The house went dark. The TV flickered out. The hum of the fridge died. The lamp beside me blinked and vanished. For a second, I just sat there, blinking into the sudden oppressive silence. A power outage wasn't common here, but it wasn't impossible either. Usually storms knocked things out, but that evening had been calm. No wind, no rain, no thunder rolling overhead. "Damn it," I muttered, setting the coffee down. I grabbed my phone, the screen lighting up the room with its pale glow, and switched on the flashlight. I figured I'd check the breaker box in the garage, maybe flip a switch, maybe curse the utility company, but then I froze. Because in the corner of my eye, through the sliding glass door that looked out into the backyard, I saw it. A beam of light, moving, slow, sweeping, deliberate. At first, my brain tried to rationalize it. Maybe a neighbor, maybe a lost hiker from the woods, maybe, hell, anything that wasn't what my gut already knew. My backyard is fenced. There's no way in without climbing over, and nobody has business being there. I crouched near the window, keeping low. My hands were shaking already, my mouth dry as paper. I tugged the curtain back just enough to see. And there he was. A man, tall, wearing a dark hoodie, hood pulled low. One hand held the flashlight, the other, my stomach dropped when the beam caught it, gripped a crowbar. This wasn't some kid cutting through my yard. This wasn't innocent. This was planned. "Jesus Christ," I whispered to myself. I ducked back, heart hammering in my chest so loud I was sure he'd hear it. My hands scrambled for my phone. I dialed 911 with fingers that felt clumsy, like they belonged to someone else. 911, what's your emergency?" My voice shook as I whispered. There's someone in my backyard. He has a crowbar. Please, I live at 415 Ashwood. Please send someone." The operator's voice was steady, calm, a lifeline in the chaos of my mind. "Sir, I need you to stay on the line. Find a safe place to hide. Officers are on the way. Do not engage the individual. Can you lock yourself in a room?" "Yes," I breathed. "Bathroom. Middle of the house. No windows." "Good. Go now. Stay quiet. Keep me updated." I crept down the hallway, every step feeling impossibly loud against the hardwood floor. My phone flashlight pointed at the ground. its glow just enough to see without catching his attention. My ears strained for any sound from the yard. As I passed the kitchen, I heard it, a metallic scrape against glass. I didn't look. I didn't dare. I moved faster, nearly tripping over myself, and slipped into the bathroom. The lock clicked and I slid into the tub, curling in on myself. "I'm in," I whispered into the phone. "You're doing great," the operator said softly. "Stay quiet. Officers are minutes away." Then it came. The sound of shattering glass. My body went cold, every nerve lit up in panic. He was in the house. I clamped my hand over my mouth to stifle a sob, my phone trembling against my cheek. "Stay calm," the operator repeated, her voice grounding me. "They're coming. Just hold on." The footsteps started slow, heavy, deliberate. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't panicked. He was searching, room by room, doors opening, furniture scraping, the creak of floorboards under boots. I could picture him moving through my living room, my kitchen, checking closets, taking his time, like he knew he had it. The hallway creaked. He was closer now. My fingers cramped from gripping the phone so tight, my lungs burned from holding my breath. He tried the first bedroom. The door groaned open, silence, then the thud of something knocked over, then the second. The bathroom was next. The handle jiggled. I almost screamed. He pushed once, twice. The lock held. A pause. Then the slow, sick scrape of metal against the wood, like he was dragging the crowbar down the door. I bit down hard on my sleeve to keep from making a sound. Tears pricked my eyes, and then, shouting, outside, "Police! Drop the weapon!" The man moved fast then. Footsteps pounding, a door slamming open, more shouting. I heard a crash, a struggle, muffled yells. Then silence. A knock at the bathroom door. "Sir." "Police. You're safe now." It's over. I couldn't move at first. My body wouldn't listen. Finally, I stumbled out of the tub, unlocked the door, and stepped into the hallway. In my living room, the man was face down on the floor, hands cuffed behind his back. His hood had slipped off, and what I saw nearly made me collapse. He wasn't some hardened monster. He wasn't some masked killer. He looked ordinary. Mid-30s, scruffy beard, tired eyes. The kind of man you might see in line at the grocery store. That somehow made it worse, because it meant people like him, people who looked normal, could be out there, watching, waiting. One of the officers explained quickly. "He's a known burglar. Been hitting houses in this area. You were lucky you called when you did. If you'd tried to confront him or run..." He shook his head. "It could have gone differently." They let him out. My house was left in shambles. Broken glass on the floor, furniture pushed aside. But the worst damage wasn't physical. That night broke something in me. This was supposed to be my safe place, my quiet refuge. But now every creak, every shadow, every hum of the wind through the trees sets me on edge. I installed locks, cameras, motion lights, but none of it erases the memory of crouching in that tub, holding my breath while a stranger dragged a crowbar down my bathroom door. None of it gives me back the illusion that I'm safe in my own home. And some nights when the house is dark and the woods are whispering just beyond the fence, I swear I see a light moving between the trees. And I can't help but wonder if next time I won't be so lucky.